Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
That's what we were able to do last time.
Gotcha. But yeah, so it seems like, yeah, we've got some minutes to approve.
We do not.
Okay.
So we are still working through them. Emily did get June done and most of July, and so, but because we didn't have that until today, and it's kind of long, we decided that we would just hold off so we can send them ahead of time. We have time to read through them because we do have a pretty long meeting, so we can expect 3 months next month.
That's fine, and I think as long as we've got the time beforehand, we can all kind of take a look and have our notes beforehand. So
yeah, and those 3 months are the ones where we actually have it with the recording.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, that's why it's taking a little bit more time.
Right? No, I think that'll be totally fine. Yeah. With that, and then next on the agenda, we've got City Board template bylaws and procedural change resolution.
So I have Danae Claiborne here. She's the clerk of the City Commission. This is something she's been working on a long time with the commission, so she's here to report on
that. Excuse me. Thank you guys for having me here tonight. Some of you, I think, are familiar with me, some are not. So my name is Danae. I am the clerk of the commission, which in other words, I'm the city clerk. I work directly for the city commissioners. Other than the city manager, I'm their only staff person. So I am tasked with taking 5 great ideas and melding them into one idea, fingers crossed. And so the board's project has been something I've been working on since 2019. And it started with a few commissioners wanting to explore options for application and doing outreach to community members that hadn't typically been exposed to the city boards and committees, and maybe do some outreach to get some people of different demographics, ages, be a little bit more inclusive, because as some of you are familiar, I heard the conversation happening earlier, having a day job and children and those types of things sometimes makes participating in a city board or committee difficult. With that came Zoom. We were lucky enough to have been exploring online streaming options. So we stream our commission meetings on YouTube, and online platforms for meeting alternatives for not just the commission, but for board members as well. And then bang, we had a pandemic, and all of a sudden everybody couldn't leave their house for a little while. And so we were actually ahead of the curve as far as many municipalities were concerned about being able to invite folks to participate in local government through an online option. From there, it sort of expanded to a few other areas. And what we found in discussions with the commission, community members, board members, staff, is that not any one board, unfortunately, was operating under the same procedures. There was no consistency. And so what the commission tasked me with was looking at what other communities were doing, not just within the state, but across the country, and looking at best practices with those that are experts in this field. So we work very closely with a group out of MSU called the Local Government Center. They're through their extension program. And they advise the city of Helena on many topics, big and small. They also work with counties, and they actually work across the state. There's also a national component to the work they do. So they have eyes on a lot of different things. And what we did was kind of doing a top-down analysis of all the various types of boards that the city has. We have 31 boards here at the city of Helena, and you are a part of that. But what we did was we sort of categorized them based on their purpose and how they were created. And some of these boards are what we call quasi-judicial boards, which means that they operate under or created by statute or are related to city code. And they have almost a court-like operation, meaning that they may potentially impact legal decisions that the commission will make later on down the road. And so we set those ones aside because they operate under a different procedure, and many of those are outlined in statute. We have administrative boards that generally advise the city manager and staff. We have appeals boards that are exactly as they sound. They may be a part of an operations or an HR process. And so people will make appeals to those boards internally and externally. So all of those sort of got set outside of this discussion. What we focused on were boards like yourselves that are citizen engagement boards that are created by the commission in order to recommend to the city commission on policy decisions. And part of what we wanted to do was look that certain policy decisions that the commission's been discussing for many years, but what they like to see and what they want to move towards would be put into a resolution. And I know you guys have already discussed your resolution a little bit, actually multiple times now, right? Yeah. To create that consistency in the creation of a board. I had it described by someone that jumped in to assist at the golf advisory discussion yesterday. He'd been working in government for many years, and he said, how I think of it as the resolution is the who and bylaws are the how. So what you'll be also discussing is the standardized bylaws that the commission has adopted and said that we want to use these as the template under which all citizen engagement advisory boards operate. It doesn't mean that you're the 5 that are subject to them now will be the only ones. There may be other boards that are considering them. In fact, some of the more QJ boards and appeals boards are actually looking at them and adopting them themselves. But at least under this current resolution, we identified you and several others that would be the most relevant to operate under this guidance. So I think that up here on the board is part of a resolution exhibit that the commission adopted on August 21st. And what I'll do is just quickly, because I don't want to take up a ton of your meeting time, is I'm going to quickly whip through the standardized bylaws highlights. None of this is intended to be comprehensive. It was a summary. It's titled that at the top. And it's basically to help you all just get a brief overview of what the commission has discussed at various meetings over the last few years and what they all agreed to and came to a consensus on. And so what you'll see here is things like that, believe it or not, not every board thought that they necessarily, the open meeting laws, if you've done the board's training, Montana has some of the most strict sunshine laws in the state, and we had actual boards for the city come forward and say, well, those don't apply to us because we're not decision makers. Well, that's not actually accurate. And so as a public entity, you are the commission, regardless of whether or not a member believes that they are a decision maker and so the laws don't apply. The commission said, well, rather than debate that topic, let's just make it applicable to your bylaws. So officers, I know you guys already have them, save a secretary, correct? Yeah. So what we need to do is have you all, it sounds like, nominate a secretary. And the reason for that is we're trying to create sort of a consistent protocol on all of these boards and committees to help staff with some of the work that you all do. And I will preface this, the secretary seems to be the #1 hot topic amongst the board's discussions, that they're like, well, how much work am I going to have to actually do if I'm secretary? We've tried to template everything and make it as easy as possible. So Bridget and Emily and Troy, I'm sure, will sit through meetings with us that they'll thoroughly enjoy, where we talk through all the templates that we have and we're going to provide to staff. And the goal is to make it so that when you all record the meeting on Zoom, as you are tonight, you'll then be able to have your secretary get a copy of that link and just timestamp the actions that happen in your meeting or the discussion points. Really, honestly, my goal is to make it so that you just take your agenda, maybe add some action summaries, and we timestamp those. The commission's going to adopt a resolution here in the coming weeks that makes the electronic or digital version of the meeting the official record of the meeting. And the reason for that is many years in the making. The commission determined many years ago, well, I say in 2019, that a more accurate record of the meeting that they conduct, the meetings they conduct, including these ones now, is the video and audio recording rather than someone's summary of what's happening or interpretation. And with the technology we have now, it seems reasonable to make that the official record. So anybody can have access to that at any time and go back and watch it. Then flash forward to this last legislative session. Any city that's over 10,000 in population is required by law now to provide a video recording. So we were pleased to say that we are ahead of that. And we were prepared for that all along. So unlike some of the other communities that were scrambling to try and meet that benchmark, we're already prepared. Now, we do still have to work out some of the kinks about, I make no bones about the fact that we'll probably come across some glitches in the system that we are going to propose to staff, but we'll deal with those as we come to them. And I think that it will be pretty seamless overall, just because we've already had that infrastructure set up. And Troy, Bridget, and the staff here at facilities have instituted all of these wonderful upgrades. That's going to make it even easier. I will say, I don't think it's in the summary here, but specific to the question you all were discussing earlier, Zoom is a wonderful option. Online meetings are a wonderful option. I don't want to now backtrack a little bit, but the commission has decided, and it would be in the bylaws, that the exception to and not the rule would be attendance online. And the reason for that is, and it's not to say that you might not have a board member that has a regular, maybe every couple of months, a reoccurring appointment or something, the fact that it's going to prohibit them from coming to the meeting, but they still want to participate. We want that to be an option, and the city is going to continue to provide that option. But the commission feels pretty strongly that we've seen, unfortunately, a devolvement of decorum and professionalism in some of the meetings. And it's easy to see, I'm sure some of you have even experienced it personally, that looking at a face on a screen or even a name on a screen sometimes makes it easier to say things that you wouldn't in person. And that's not to say that that's happening across all boards and committees, but it unfortunately has become an issue on certain in certain discussions. Also, I think that you get, and some of you might even have experienced this at work versus here, you sometimes get a much better discussion if you're engaged personally with folks. And I think the commission really appreciated that in their own meetings, they see a better discussion when they're face-to-face versus just constantly online. And so what they'd like to see is a shift back to in-person meetings and make the online option outreach for the public, an option for recording that and being in line with the new legislative decision, and an alternative when everyone gets in a bind occasionally. So I would speak to that. I didn't want you guys to head down that path too far before I got to crush that thought. We do have things like you'll see there, the bylaws have new sections now that had never existed before, related number 6, decorum, conflict of interest, and public engagement. And I know that you all do a lot of public outreach. I think that what we need to set up with this board in particular, because in no way is the commission displeased with anything this board in particular does. In fact, it's quite the opposite. What we need to do is maybe shift that a little bit so that the commission at least is aware of any public outreach, and that's going to be consistent amongst all boards and committees. The commission doesn't ever want to get caught flat-footed and find out that some board or committee has reached out to a member of the community and hasn't at least gone to them first for consideration. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of the authority that the commission has in the overall structure, and that they get an opportunity to weigh in, if for no other reason than to applaud you in your efforts for community outreach. Decorum and conflict of interest, I spoke a little bit about that. It's an unfortunate thing, and I very much doubt that we'll run into this issue, but there has been established these protocols that would allow the commission to address them with a board member, and that if someone is, I guess, consistently an issue in engaging with the staff or fellow board members, that the commission would have options in order to address those. So that's the corrective action plan that's discussed in 8. I don't know. Oh, training, number 7, very important. I know a lot of you have probably already attended the training, so thank you for that. Training is now going to be required, and if you're an officer, I know you're super excited about this. You're going to take a parliamentary training online with the local government center. It's about 2 hours. It's not too bad, and Ashley sort of keeps it engaging and fun. But that's to help keep the meetings efficient and more effective. What we have seen over and over again is we have boards that bless them all. They'll show up for a meeting. They'll ask one another what they did over the weekend. They'll talk about some stuff, like have some coffee. And then an hour or two has passed by and they've really discussed nothing. And then the commission will ask, well, are we ever going to get a recommendation from so-and-so? We also have some boards that are the exact opposite. They have 30 points of discussion on their agendas, get through all of them, but the meetings are lasting 5 to 6 hours. We need to be able to reach out to the public and say, we want you to engage and be a part of these boards because your voice matters. And the commission wants to hear those recommendations. I've literally had people come to my office and say, I really want to be on this board, but I don't have 5 hours in my evening to get to it. So we need to start operating under some parliamentary procedures so the meeting is moving along. So we're going to ask the officers to take that parliamentary training. The board training that you guys have maybe already taken will be offered twice a year now because it's going to be required. I know that there's been questions by board members as to how we're going to account for your attendance. I assure you, we will take care of that. It's not a concern for board members. We'll make sure you get counted. I do say to all of you that maybe have or haven't come to the board training before at the Civic Center, or even I think Grand Street was used once upon a time. We do provide food, so to entice you to go. So there's sandwiches, because we generally hold it in the evenings, but we are going to offer online option because we want to encourage everyone to go. I am in the process of scheduling someone. What I'm going to do, I asked the commission for additional training dollars to entice folks that have been to the board's training before, and you'll need to sort of re-up that and re-familiarize yourself with the law that's in that board's training every year. We're going to offer a guest speaker at one of the board's trainings. I haven't figured out if I can offer it at both, but I'll definitely be offering it on the November 9th board's training that's coming up shortly. We're inviting a man named Mark Wilmarth. He works for a company or owns a company out of Great Falls called Vision West. I just confirmed with him today. What his specialty is facilitation of groups. And so what we've talked about is with him, and are going to continue to have him supplement the training that Dan Clark will offer through the local government center, is how you can make your meetings more engaging. And that hopefully just isn't applicable here. That will be applicable in your daily lives, with your work, with your family. But he goes all over the state and across the country to teach folks how to communicate with one another, how to develop an agenda, and how to be effective with your cohorts. And I've seen him speak a couple of times now, and it was actually pretty good, funny. And I think it'll be some way to entice folks to come and learn a little something different than the standard open meeting laws training. Not that Dan and Ashley don't do a great job, but I get that it gets a little stale. Do you guys have any questions on anything I've talked about thus far? This is, like I said, an overview of the bylaws. I think I've pretty much covered everything that's very important. Term lengths and term limits, that's new. It has been kind of a practice, but not solidified, that the commission would like to see 2 terms and 3-year terms. Now, I would say this, always appointments are at the mayor and commission's discretion. But what they want to see is the opportunity for people that have served 6 years, step aside, even if it's just for a short period, and let new folks have an opportunity to engage. And I have told them time and time again, I think that opening that door up is great, but also giving yourself a little wiggle room is a good thing too. So I think the standard will be that 3 years and 2 terms, but we understand that sometimes filling these seats can be difficult. I have had folks ask me questions about vacancies on boards. I don't think you guys generally run into that problem here, right? Okay, well then I won't dive too deep into that, but I will tell you that it does offer an opportunity, an interesting opportunity to discuss the scope and purpose of a board. If we have boards that are genuinely lacking interest, it gives the commission an opportunity to open up that discussion and say, well, maybe we need to rethink what the scope and purpose of this board is if it's stagnant, and it brighten things up a little bit. Let's see, interim terms, just throw that out there. If any of you are interim, that means you technically still have 2 terms you can serve. All vacancies, including those that are currently filled by you, are going to be advertised. And that's just in an effort to be fair. As someone pointed out to me, they said, well, why would you not just do 6 years if you're just going to push somebody through for a second term automatically? So it also, you know, we get it. This is a lot of time to devote. So somebody should feel comfortable stepping back if they need to. I think resignation, you guys are familiar with that. That's been a pretty standard process. Recruitment and application, that talks a little bit about some of the things I've already addressed. Online applications, we're going through we've kind of tried to model it as a quasi HR process, so we're trying to be fair to everyone. Absences and attendance requirements. This is actually a request by boards themselves. I very much doubt you guys run into it here from what Bridget and Troy have told me, but we do have some boards where absences are a consistent issue. What the commission would like is a method to be notified of that so that they can address it. Unexcused absences are defined. The chair, vice chair, or the secretary should be notifying staff. I know that Bridget does a great job following along with you all, but we need to know at my office so I can inform the commission if we have an unexcused absence issue on boards. Excused absences, you know, we understand stuff happens, and so Amanda, as the chair, would just be notified prior to the meeting that someone can't make it. But if, again, showing up to a meeting continues to be an issue, well, maybe that board and that time it's not a good fit, and there might be other people in the community that would like to sit in that seat. Staff liaison responsibilities. This is part of the secretary issue. I think that not in this board, but we have had boards in the past where hours and hours of staff time is spent per week supporting the board, doing minutes and research. The commission is pretty clear that staff are here to support, but not their number one job is their day job at the city. And so we want to find ways to support staff and their goal to do the work of the city, but also keep you guys aligned with city policy, open meeting laws, and that's where staff steps in. So any assistance that the board can help, like through a secretary, makes that possible. And again, that's why we tried to make it as templated and easy for a volunteer board member to participate in that. And then staff's role would really be more to host meetings on the website and offer the infrastructure to have you do your public outreach and communicate with the commission and the commission office. Staff reports. I know this board in particular, along with another 1 or 2, is a little different. You guys have a pretty good back and forth with staff. Making sure that relationship is staying at the right level. I would remind all boards that your authority is a recommendation to the commission. What we've seen in the past of boards and committees that have essentially stepped outside their lane and begin a relationship of direction with staff. And so we need to draw some pretty clear lines there that the staff does not work for the commission, they work for the city manager, and that boards are here to support the commission. So stepping outside that lane puts the staff very often in an awkward position. Now, the city manager can always assign work to staff and say, we think this is valuable and the work that HPAC is doing is important enough for Bridget, Troy, and Emily to spend hours assisting and doing research. That's the city manager's discretion. So we need to make sure and draw those clear lanes so that the commission isn't put in an awkward position where they're being asked to step in on behalf of staff and ask a board member to step back from that role. So I think that that's probably not an issue here, but I throw it out there for just your general edification. Public engagement. This one is a little different than maybe how you have all operated in the past. We just want to make sure we're following a process. And remember, at the heart of this project was the commission asking for consistency. What I provide for one, I have to be able to provide for all. So public engagement means that a board or committee needs to work through the city in order to reach out to the public. Believe it or not, we've had board members reach out to Senator Tester's office on behalf of the city. We've had flyers being put out without ever talking to city staff and distributing them to community members without ever talking to anyone. And someone brings to the commission's attention that they've got a flyer on their door from the city. So we just need to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And the only way that happens is if Amanda, as the representative of the board and the chair, is working with staff, brings an item forward, and I'm always happy to bring something for the city manager and get it on an agenda, even if it's just a brief update, so you all can keep the commission informed. They want that. So we're gonna work through that process. I will tell you this, it is what I'm referring to as phase 2 of this board's project. The commission and the HCC are now removed from all general board or from these general advisory boards, which is a big shift in the dynamic. And the reason for that is they really wanted to see the advisory boards engage as a body with the entire body of the elected officials, where decisions can actually be made. And that's a best practice that was recommended to us. Having what had been sometimes referred to as a back channel or a one-off was creating problems. So what the commission wants to see is the annual report, which I know you guys are gonna maybe discuss a little bit, right? That would be an example of how we'd work through a public engagement process. And what I keep explaining to boards is, and I think you're a perfect example of this, is by going through that public meeting and talking to the commission as a body, you might be able to ask for things through a budget process that you would have never considered getting done before. And what we've seen is that sometimes boards feel like, well, I don't really know how to get onto a commission agenda, so I'm just going to call the commissioner because I happen to have his phone number and we'll see what happens. Without the entire commission engaged on that, the likelihood of something getting done that's really big and productive is, goes a little bit to the less likely end of the scale. So the annual report will be an opportunity that, as I spoke with the commission staff and the local government center, an opportunity for you as a board and committee to make policy recommendations to the commission at a level where you can ask, maybe you've had a project that's come forward to you multiple times that is a lot of budget dollars to ask for, and you want to show the commission how you might make those dollars stretch over the course of a few years to get, I don't know, you're painting every building downtown pink. Just throwing something out there, and that's going to cost a few $100,000 in paint at least, not including labor. So here's how we think we could plan that out over the next 5 years and make it an attraction across the nation to come see the pink downtown. If you were to come to the commission with that ask and give facilities, transportation systems, and every department an opportunity to vet that and consider it as part of the budget process, you might be able to get a pretty huge project done. And I know the Public Arts Committee for many years has had to set aside projects like the ghost signs downtown because $60,000 is a lot of money to ask for. But if you go through a bigger budget process, we can plan for that a little better with you, and maybe the commission would consider it. So I throw that out as an example. So 5-year review, that is the opportunity for the commission to ask the hard question. Is this board still relevant? We have boards that have been around for 20+ years and are reflective of the commission that created them at the time. The need may not be there anymore, and that's an okay question to ask. Generally, what we've seen is that those boards sort of just fall off in interest anyway, and so we're struggling constantly to get people to join them, and quorum issues develop and all of those types of things. But it also gives the commission an opportunity every 5 years to ask other questions. Do we need to change because there's so much interest? Maybe we need to put some more seats on this board. Maybe we need to lessen the number of seats, but the value is still there, so it makes it easier for them to have a quorum. Or maybe this board is still valuable, but we need to rethink the scope and purpose of this board and get more bang for our buck out of these volunteers' time. So I think it's a really good practice, and the commission was all for it I think it's an opportunity too for the boards to look at that. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the local government review, which is going to be happening here soon. That's sort of where we modeled this after, is that it's a great opportunity for a civics lesson. And for a board, that might actually mean leading up to your 5-year review. I look at it as an opportunity to do some public outreach and engagement and explain to the public wholeheartedly what you do and why you're important. And then that translates to the commission too. Talked about training, so you all know about what you need to at this stage. I definitely will keep you abreast of any dates and all of that. Role of elected officials, we already talked about that and the reasoning behind it. And then the policy amendments, provisions, it's just going to go through a public process. Phase 2 is, like I said, more about the commission's engagement with you all. And how they want to receive recommendations through overarching process. I know it seems like a simple thing, but getting all of them to sit down and decide exactly how they want to receive recommendations and work within the city's infrastructure and with the city manager is actually kind of a big conversation. And it lends itself to a lot of different discussions. So we're going to have that hopefully here in the coming months. I will tell you that I'm trying to set that conversation with the commission aside until they can do some strategic planning with the city manager. Once he sets those goals with them about how they want to move forward as a body for the next 1, 5, 10, 25 years, all of those goals could be translated into targets and goals that they give to you. So let's say the commission says as one of their strategic goals, they really want to look at downtown and how they might revitalize it. And art might be a huge component of that. They may ask you to bring forward recommendations on how they can revitalize and beautify downtown as part of their strategic goals for the next 5 years. That's a great opportunity for you guys to engage. So I just give you that heads up that that's hopefully going to happen in the next few months. And so I'm excited to see how we can maybe take that strategic goal setting session with the commission and translate it into work for you all to dig into. Do you guys have any other questions at this point? I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. Trying to talk fast.
Yeah, that's great.
I do.
Yeah.
Back on the, I just want a clarification
Sure.
on absences, and it said well, there were 3 unexcused. Is that consecutive, or is that 3 over the whole term, or what is that?
Unexcused is unexcused. I think how it's defined is you didn't reach out and you made no effort. It doesn't matter if they're 3 in a row or 3 overall. And again, I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to be punitive here for you all, but I think that what I heard consistently from boards and committees, again, this wasn't even necessarily driven by the commission per se, somewhat staff saying we don't really know what to do. There's folks that just aren't showing up. We just need a method by which we can hold somebody accountable. And so the commission said, well, what do other cities and towns do? We define an unexcused absence as you didn't even make an effort. And so at this point, the commission would probably ask for a staff recommendation and just ask for some feedback and from the board, and then they'll make a decision at that point. I don't want to pin them down to any, yes, this is absolutely going to be how it works, because again, this is all at their discretion. They appoint at their discretion, they remove at their discretion.
Okay, I had a couple more. You mentioned the training on November 9th, I think that is, and that's at the Civic Center, right?
Yeah.
And what time will that be?
I think right now we have it slated for 5:30. So yes, we haven't made any formal announcement yet because I'm still working out the logistics with the 2 presenters. But yes, 5:30 is what's coming to mind in my email. So
Okay, I just wanted to put it in my calendar.
sure.
And then you mentioned the local government review. When is that going to go? When is that
Ooh, the
gonna-
local government review. Well, it's kind of off topic, but that one is we'll take the first resolution to the commission for the vote in June of 2024. For those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, it's a very unique process to the Constitution of Montana, where you as a local government and constituency are going to open up the question to the voters as to whether or not you want to create a commission, a study commission, to look at your form of local government. And that commission will spend 2 years, should the voters say yes, studying whether or not there are modifications, changes, or we stay completely status quo, and make that recommendation to the constituency and the commission on their form of local government, or parts and pieces of it. Maybe everything's working perfect except for this one little bit of the charter, or this one little bit of the way we go about doing our city business. And so then they'll make those recommendations. So that'll start in June of 2024. That's when the first resolution goes out. That'll be a special ballot measure. Anything else?
So yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank you. That
lots
was
to
really
cover, but yeah.
Yeah.
Go through it.
I would say this, I know that Bridget had the bylaws available for you, the template, right? Or did we do the ones that actually had some of the?
I didn't send any
Okay.
one of them out.
Okay. So one caveat to all of this is that the commission, through resolution, the one that we were referencing earlier in this discussion, asked that all boards and committees adopt those bylaws by October 31st. If a board, for whatever reason, lacks a quorum, and this has already come up, well, we don't know if we'll have a quorum by next month to adopt them. The commission will just go through a process and adopt them for you. What we did want to have is this discussion. They sent me out to say, please bring back any questions or additions. I will say that the bylaws that the template are the floor. Everything beyond that, you guys can offer, and actually, surprisingly, I've had boards already reach out and say, can we make it more restrictive on X, Y, and Z? Which I was kind of surprised by, but that's certainly up for discussion. What we're doing is an internal process then, and looking at those suggestions and asking the question, is this specific to this board and a need, or is this something we should be applying overall? So we want that feedback. And then once you all get an opportunity to digest some of this, listen to my rambling and go back and think about it a little bit, I'm happy to answer any more questions via email or phone call. And then the hope would be at your next meeting in October, you would adopt those bylaws. I'm very sorry, I keep mixing everybody up, and I'm starting to lose track of who I've done what with, but you guys are all done with the new resolution, so we don't have to worry about that. Yeah, so I think the only thing we need to do is the secretary and the bylaws adoption. I did speak a little bit with Bridget too, and she said you guys are wanting to maybe shift the day of the month and time maybe, or have that discussion a little bit. I don't know, I could be remembering it wrong too. If that's the case, this question has come up. Boards have asked why we put in the bylaws a date, day of month, and a time. And the reason for that is public participation and the right to know. We want to create a consistency. Now, remember always, you're going to be doing annual election of officers and an annual review. That poses an opportunity for you all to review as a board every year if that day and time is actually working. So we're not trying to be rigid about it. What we'd like to do is create a consistent meeting time and day so that the public is aware, and your members, there's an expectation, the members that attend.
So my thought for you guys was that, so next month at October's meeting, you'll have this template bylaws sent to you ahead of time to review, and then we'll go through those, and you guys can suggest any changes or additions that you want to make, and then hopefully that you guys can basically adopt your bylaws, have a election of a secretary, and then in those bylaws, like she said, it does have actually slated out your meeting time. I don't know if I sent this out or not, but Megan did resign, and she was one of the driving forces of the Wednesday night. And when we did the doodle poll, Max and I think we got like an unclear. I think some people put what they were available and some put what they weren't available. So I think we had kind of this mess.
Yeah, we didn't get any
And
info.
so I was thinking we could just redo that so that when we go into that bylaw adoption, you guys can determine then what you really want your time to be. If it's Wednesday at 5:30, it is, but at least that's a time to look at it and see what works best for you guys. So we'll have all of that on next month's meeting. Okay.
And something to consider too, and I'll defer to Danae a little bit on this, but so when I know that this board is one of the only that I'm aware of that meets in a time that crosses over when the commission actually meets.
Mhm.
And is that where it can be a conflict if you guys have a presentation
Mhm.
and you have to be over there, you can't be over here, and you're fifth on the agenda over there, there could be a conflict. So it's something to consider when we look at start time. The admin meetings are 4 to 6. Sometimes they go on, sometimes they don't, but normally 4 to 6. So probably outside of those hours.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are generally what boards look at. Fridays, I mean, if you guys want to do Friday night and everybody hits downtown afterwards, super, that's your discretion, I guess, as a board, but I would say this too, one of the things that the commission is really interested in, and that goes back to the parliamentary thing and efficiency of a meeting. They don't really want boards having to sit in 4 and 5 hour slogs, because it really does impact attrition and the ability to recruit for their boards. And you guys have lives, and I understand fully that I've eaten up 20 minutes of your meeting already, but the commission advocated really hard that, please, we don't want to be in 4 and 5 hour meetings. As the governing body, we would encourage our boards to keep it at 2 hours or less, maximum of 2 hours. And if your agenda is constantly causing you to go over that 2 hour mark, now we need to have a discussion about prioritizing agendas and what the discussion is happening on agenda items. If you have regular business, a consent agenda is perfectly acceptable for a board as well. And if you don't know what a consent agenda is, I look forward to seeing you at November 9th board's training. But yeah, I open to discussion. If you guys, I haven't heard anyway that you guys are running over constantly 2 hour meetings, but I would encourage you to take a peek at that and consider that when you're shifting your meeting time around a little bit of your day. But that's just food for thought for all of you when you get to that point. So, but feel free to email me or reach out in between now and October. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I would like for you to walk in feeling like you're prepared and you have all the information you need for that adoption in October. And then hopefully we'll be getting some information out about the board's training here in the next few weeks, because it's going to be November before we know it, as crazy as that is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to take my leave and I'm going to go close up the other meeting. I'm assuming you're done since you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Is that your sweater?
Well, thank you. It's so hot in here. Okay. Turn the AC on in here.
I had to turn it off in the other room.
I know. I'm sorry.
But just so you guys know, when you do, if you are meeting in here, the controls are just behind the flag over. They won't turn on. This will be on, but it's not.
But yeah, I guess we can kind of keep things, we're trying to move along here. Staff reports.
Okay, mine's gonna be short and sweet, unless you guys have questions, which is totally fine too. So about half of you were at the Centennial Trail Tunnel mural ribbon cutting the other day.
I showed up at 2 p.m.
Yeah, I don't
There was
know
nobody
what
there.
in Australia, like, I don't know.
My invite, I got an invite that said 2
that's so
p.m.
weird. That's really weird.
I
do
showed up
apologize.
30
It was-
seconds after the ribbon cutting, so.
Yeah. I do apologize. It was a pretty late notification. We were kind of at the mayor's will for his schedule. But it was, and he started a few minutes early.
You did.
That's why I was.
You were on time.
I was running.
Yeah. It was like if you got there on time, you missed it, basically. But it was nice. I mean, the artist hung around and talked to a lot of people and talked about her mural. So that is great. She did name it Momentum Mural. And I think you've got some stuff on that in your report. That's awesome. I did want to talk about the signage, because we did talk about from the beginning about getting some sort of signage out there. I would gladly accept anybody's help, Amanda.
I sent it to you.
An actual signage?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
I thought I did.
I will look through. But yeah, that's like just the last piece of it, is some signage for it.
Like, yeah, I've got something for us to kind of review as a group, and see if we have any like adjustments.
Okay.
I can probably pull that up here.
Unfortunately, our, the wireless presentation isn't working,
Oh, that's okay, we can,
so.
I could, just pass my iPad around to everyone. Take a look here. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. Sure. But yeah, I reached out to Elise to kind of show her the sign I was thinking and get her input as well. Because she wanted to include those that had helped her with it, so I kind of got those names to include. I think I actually already have it in the annual or like a
Well, I saw
draft of
something
it.
in that, that's what I was referring to.
Totally, and that's what it is, but I believe I also sent a I sent like the PDF somewhere. It might have gotten, it might have been too big, got lost.
Yeah, I did see that, and that's why that's kind of what I was referring to. Is-
Totally. But I was thinking something along the lines like this, like a big circle sign that this could go on either side below where it lists Memorial Park or Centennial Park. I think I measured it, I think 24 inches, I think 24 inches. I didn't have my ruler on me. But if I could, and I also got like a write-up from Elise. So yeah, it says Momentum Mural by Elise Pignano. And then it says a celebration of the inspirational art, history, and community that keep Helena moving forward. And then project support. Project supported, provided by the City of Helena, Helena Public Arts Committee, and the Railroad Urban Renewal District TIF funds, completed September 2023. And then it lists in smaller font, assistance provided by CWG Architecture, Proof Marketing, Attack Holter, 406 Houses, Sherwin-Williams, Helena Parks and Recreation Department, and many community art lovers.
Any questions?
Yes.
I'm looking at the word momentum and it looks static. So I'm wondering if the letters could kind of go like that indicate momentum.
That's something to consider. I could definitely play around with it a little bit. I can show you too what it looks mocked up on the side, like on the sign itself. But I think working within like a circle kind of makes, you kind of limit, can be kind of a challenge in getting it to look right.
I think it like italics, you know, they kind of lean a little bit.
See, I've got the look right here. Just kind of pass me. Below.
Yeah.
And then the thought is on those signs right now, there's big pick up your poop things, and it would be really wonderful to ask the Parks Department if you could please move those to the poop bag area instead of it having to be like this.
The centerpiece.
Yeah, the centerpiece of the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if anything, as a group, I'd love to send this to you guys just to make sure, triple check any spelling or anything like that. Make sure we've got commas right. So that's something I'm been terrible about. But yeah, does anyone have any other thoughts on that or anything else that they think should be?
My one thought on it is like, I think of it as like a card in an art gallery where the title is rather neutral, just black Times New Roman on a white background. And then it's uniform for all the pieces in the gallery. Is there an existing graphic design look or font that we already have labeled murals around town that we should stick to that uniform label?
That's a good thought, but not necessarily. For the Rodney ones, I kind of made my own where it looked more like a art exhibit, but they had write-ups that were like 3 paragraphs long, where her write-up was, yeah, like 1 sentence. And so that's why I kind of focused on like the name and then tried to use some like hierarchy there to kind of draw attention to the information we did have for it. And also too on the bottom, I think there would be 2 different signs where on the top it says entering Helena's Railroad District. And then it could also say leaving Helena's Railroad District on the other side. So that way we kind of speak to what we told the railroad folks, you know, that we're trying to kind of share that this is an entrance into that district. So
They'll like that.
I hope so. But yeah, I'll definitely send this to everybody and we can just take one final look, and then I'm not sure if you'd have to kind of go out to bid with a sign vendor or but however you guys would like to order that. And then yeah, I think that'll be our final piece for the Centennial Trail Tunnel mural, guys. Was there, sorry, Bridget, was there anything else on staff reports?
Yeah, there's 2 more items.
Okay, sure.
So the dumpster, I just wanted to touch on some timelines for just kind of give you guys some heads up of what's coming in our schedule for staff. The dumpster murals, and I have these 2 backwards, but looking at the schedule, we're planning on your November meeting to get your guys' input and recommendations on the RFP for that project. And then the month before, so the next month, October, we'll be doing the same thing, looking for your input on the RFP for the Centennial Park Glendale Tunnel Mural Phase 1. So I'm kind of giving you an idea of what we're looking for in the next couple months. That's all we have.
So I have a question on the Glendale Tunnel, which is my favorite, of course, but do we have the funding secure for that?
The HPAC has, we have $15,000 in funds for that for this year.
Okay, but a TIF application is going to be submitted by December, end of December.
It does not have to be.
I know,
We've
but
discussed with finance that we do not have to, we did not carry over revenue, but we carried over the expense. So that would be something that could or can, but does not have to be done. The funding is there.
Because I was trying to recall at a few of our last meetings, we thought about making, like, doing all the north, the south, and the interior all at once. And then wouldn't we need to ask for more money to be able to do it all at the same time? And I can't, yeah, and I couldn't believe that's what we had, I think,
That's what we were shooting for.
landed
yeah.
on.
But we were unsure about funding because we would have to spread it out over 2 of our fiscal years plus possibly the TIF application.
Well, because I think at our last meeting, we found out that it did roll over. But yeah, the thought was maybe then do we pause and wait until we can, you know, it's like then how much is enough money to do all 3? Or do we do this phase 1, phase 2? Yeah, because I'm sorry to put a pause on that, but yeah, I kind of feel like we had talked about that at was it our last meeting? Yeah, because we weren't sure if you would ask, you know, artists to do something once and then something again,
Right.
you know, reapply again, or if it'd be multiple folks. But do you kind of have any recollection on that?
I know we were talking about whether we asked for people to submit as a team was one of the ideas, or if we phase it out over 2 years, and then have the artist look at existing imagery and match their proposal around the interior. And that may have been kind of where we landed, was that we were talking about, like, well, do we propose put out 2 calls to artists at the same time and force them to collaborate, which we decided was not probably a good approach.
Right.
And so then we were thinking about, like, well, phase 1, phase 2, we'll keep to that and have the second applicant like put in the RFP to
Yeah, now that
put your
That's what
design
I was
accommodated to the existing design and like keep with the theme.
I think what we were,
Or if we, I know we
Were the
have a
2
lot of
ideas.
options on the table.
and I think
were
we
talking
landed on if it's just one artist or
just
team
full
of
go.
artists
I
for
feel
the
like
whole
that
thing.
might have been that we were just like, well, let's ask.
Uh-huh. Because
I
then
wasn't sure if the 15,000 covered the inside and the outside.
No, it would be.
I think that would cover, I think we would still
No,
need about a
that's
third
true, 'cause
more.
Square footage, it was about the same as
Mhm.
the Centennial Tunnel, because the interior is deceptively smaller.
It is, and I think maybe what you're factoring into is that you would need scaffolding, which kind of really adds to the cost. And it being kind of a unique canvas kind of played into that a little bit too, but just knowing that
Mhm.
scaffolding is kind of adds to the
Yeah, physically
labor.
more demanding
Yeah,
of a person.
well, I mean, in which case, like if I remember, I think for the Lindale Tunnel, we had decided like on a total, if we wanted to get it all like the north face, the south face, and the tunnel done, it'd be about 20,000. But if we only have 15, then do we have the time to, apply for that grant or that, that TIF money, and then does that pause the call for artists until all of that money is secure?
Well, and then we were talking about like the question of like, is it like the city asking for the city? Like a city committee asking for a city entity to fund city project instead of just asking permission
Mm-hmm.
for those to fully fund it.
That's kind of what you did with the other tunnel, you know?
Right, that's what I'm saying,
So-
but also like
Yeah.
looking to improve our processes and adjust to the change in how we're doing things, and honestly, that's how historically it's been done, but
Mm-hmm.
is that the path moving?
Right. Yeah, I wonder if we only have 15, yeah, so I guess I would kind of defer to you guys then, and it's like, if, we've got that 15, would we have time just, still maybe apply for the town TIF for that other, say, $5,000 at this point? And could that still keep everything on this timeline? So that way it doesn't kind of slow any of your processes down.
Well, I can say this, what I remember is, you presenting part of the strategic plan and not realizing that we have these funds still available. And I had mentioned at the time too, that I wasn't sure if we were gonna get an approved carryover. And I think the next meeting we talked about, we did get that approved carryover, so we could still go forward with that. It was in the timeline that I presented, at that meeting. So yeah, my understanding was that we're still going forward with at least part of it. The position staff is probably in at this point, in referring to like some of the new processes that Troy and I've been trying to make that shift with this board over the last year, and that Danae alluded to, is that you guys made a recommendation to the commission, then that goes through that process to the city manager, then we get basically direction from the city manager. So currently the staff's direction is to do the Centennial Tunnel this year.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't mean that you guys can't decide that you don't feel it's in the best interest to do it now and make a recommendation to halt it. We're coming to you for input, but our direction is to do this job.
Sure. Right.
So like I said, it doesn't mean that you guys can't recommend that we not do it and wait. And we can. But currently it's like moving forward.
Sure.
As far as adding more money to it, you could go for the TIF grant, but it's not gonna change the amount that is allocated to spend. It just puts money in the revenue. Before, it was $7,500 of that expense was gonna be funded through TIF. Or, well, it was just a donation of some sort. You guys had decided to do TIF. But again, when we looked at carryovers for the year, the finance director did not recommend carrying over the revenue, but did recommend to carry over the full expense, meaning you can spend that $15,000 without bringing any extra revenue in. But you can't spend more than $15,000 whether you bring in more revenue or not. I mean, you could ask for a budget amendment, but that would have to be approved, and that part does take time as well.
Gotcha. I understand. So with that, I guess, do we feel like, could we make this $15,000 work for all those, for all the phases? Because I feel like it would be, if we to do it in 2 phases, it's, it would just take the kind of gusto out of whatever the phase 2 is. It'd be nice. I think that's what we had landed on, is like, if we could do it all, it would just make the most sense to have it be kind of the most complete project. And yeah, do we you know, do we feel that that 15,000 is enough? Or that hopefully the artist could, you know, make it be enough.
Well, if it's a two-phase thing, then can you come back with a budget request for the following year? I'm assuming the next phase is the following year. I'm not sure what the timing is on that, but, and then come back with a budget request to do the second phase.
Yeah, I think that's, from what I recall from like the summer's meetings, we had just thought that kind of trying to do it in 2 phases was gonna mean that the second phase kind of fell flat a little bit, if I kind of recall.
It's gonna hurt our efficiency and and
Exactly.
making 2 artists work together is
Mhm.
gonna hurt the idea.
So it seems like with what we've kind of got going, that we should just consider making that 15,000 work, and you know.
I think it'll work,
you're
yeah. We might not get the super high power artists to apply.
right. But it turns out we
15K
didn't,
is
you
still
know,
a
in
pretty
this
good
last
first.
case, we didn't even really need it because we had such a great local person
Mhm.
that stepped up, so
We
hopefully.
can also ask for, like, people have scaffolding,
Right,
you know,
And
we
things
can
like
certainly
that.
reach out to the community
yeah,
and say,
I have
hey, would you help us
Mhm.
with this? You know, like,
right,
you know, I can think of 3 people who have scaffolding.
Totally. So
off
there
the
might be
top
some
of
ways
my
to
head
support
that
in
would
that
be
way.
More than happy to let it be borrowed for the scope of a project,
totally,
I would assume,
yeah.
Mhm.
knowing that the complicating factor would be securing it.
Mhm.
If it was loans like that, like, you know, we'd have to ensure it's safety, but
Sure,
I
and
am
luckily that artist has
positive
insurance.
that
as well.
someone would be excited to have their scaffolding be used. for
Right.
the arts, you know?
And I think that's what happened for the Jackson Street parking garage as
Right.
well. So I think a lot of that was similar. All right, well, with that, it sounds like, yeah, that we don't even kind of need a phase 2 at this point. If that, I don't know if that would mess with anything on your guys' end, aside from just how the call for artists is kind of worded and how it shows what that square footage is.
And I mean, we can, you know, something that the October meeting will be, you know, that'll be a big chunk of the meeting, is figuring out that, so we can definitely be talking in depth about it at that meeting.
Okay.
And figure out how we want it. What we think is best.
Cool.
Thank you.
I think that
Thank you
works.
guys for your
Like that.
patience
Yeah.
while we learn new systems.
Every done.
So I have a question still on that tunnel. So for the one under North Last Chance, you gave some direction towards theme. Are you going to do that on this other tunnel, or is it going to be open, or?
That's kind of what the October meeting will.
Oh, okay, you're going
be
to
a
decide that.
discussion.
I know some of our theme with the Last Chance Tunnel was based on railroad money. So we
Right.
wanted to include railroads since they were funding it.
Mhm.
This one I expect will be a little less restrictive, but
Right, but yeah, I think it'd be a great discussion for October, you know, if anyone has any thoughts there of what they would like to bring to the group.
cool.
Cool, all right, with that, any other things? from
Nope, that
the
sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much, Bridget. All right, so then annual report draft. I can kind of try and keep this short and sweet for us. Is there a way to pull that up by chance? And I've got my one right here, so in case we have any edits, I can kind of quickly just do that on the fly. And that way this will be our final for presenting next month. I think there's a few sections that I would like opinions on. Yeah, and I think what made this a little bit of a not a challenge, but what I was wondering on is, since I literally just gave this exact report like a couple months ago, so that was kind of hard. Is like, do I just use the same screens, or you know, maybe I just won't spend as much time like speaking to it, since a lot of these commissioners have already heard this. This exactly. So we can kind of go into the first page. I combined the first 2 things that came up in our fiscal year, just to kind of, you know, touch on that, which was the Bounty Memorial and the E6 Ward Wayfinding mural. And I just, you know, listed when it was installed, the contribution, you know, project budget, and just keeping that really, really simple. And then for the next page, it's the signal boxes, so I included the completed photos of those as well as the previous designs from previous years. Just for context, and that the project budget, 4 new signal boxes installed. And then for the next page, I just go into the Centennial Tunnel mural project, and I kept Elise's little write-up, the celebration of inspirational art, history, and community, Helena moving forward. And then this is where I kind of added some information. She sent me photos of all of her volunteers that came and helped. And so I thought this was a great place to kind of just show that and show the community involvement, because she really did have like a really great support network of a lot of different people that helped. That really kind of makes this project even kind of stronger. And then in that top right is the signage that we would be having installed. And then this is, then I just kind of go into the projects that we have going forward that are slated, which is the dumpster art in the spring of 2024, which is 5 trash receptacles, project budget of 5,000, as well as the community collaboration that we have coming up as for some potential opportunities there. So I just wanted to like kind of touch on that, since those are things we have coming up. And then just listed the public art map again. We had the Centennial Tunnel mural added, as well as I think 3 pieces of the 6 board. I had Megan reach out to me and share photos and write-ups for those. So that way I think we're as up to date as possible. Oh, I think maybe the Pocha bench would be the only one that needs to be included now. And then this, just kind of speaking to, oh, sorry, you can keep on that same page really quick. I wanted just to ask you guys, would this be kind of, I know in the past for public art maintenance, we've kind of had a line item of about 1,500. Would I kind of list that number here as well as like a standing, as like a kind of a standing item?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I think it's been that way.
Mhm.
I think we want the flexibility that we want to have the flexibility to change it.
Okay,
So it's a number in this year's budget.
okay,
Next year might be different. So,
totally. Okay, that's exactly
but to
what I
point
mean.
out what you're talking about is great. To say, here's what we have in front of us, or maybe here's what we've done. For
Sure.
maintenance.
Sure, and so yeah, I just kind of touched to those outreach things like the maintenance, the events, the public art map, so. Yeah, keep it simple. All right, and then we can move on to this next page. And so this goes into our proposal for this next year, which I think maybe I would need to kind of rework how a lot of this is because knowing that this is actually I think the fiscal year $24.
Current project.
Current, all right, so this would be more like current project. I'm just gonna update that right now.
So this one, the tunnel's not for FY 24.
So I'm
She's
fixing that, but
changing.
it's not updating right here.
Oh, okay.
Wish I could, and then we'll change that line item to 15,000. And estimated completion of summer 2024. And basically, I just pulled our exact same language from all of the documents that we put together last year, but updated it for the Lindale Tunnel. And I included these photos from Jeannie and yeah, is there anything else you guys think we should include on this page, or anything else that you think would be important to?
Amanda, just a quick clarification. So at the bottom, you have something about the TIF. Is that speaking to the Lindale Tunnel mural? Would that be, I guess, from our conversation a few months ago, would you eliminate the TIF request?
Yeah, I think after our conversation today, we'd probably just delete that entire last paragraph. Just keep it simple. And then, yeah, just kind of speaking to, it's about 2,400 square feet, but includes kind of a more challenging surface, and it'll be sprayed with an anti-graffiti sealant. And then, yeah, I think I'll just finish deleting this right here. Be all caught up, and then we can go to this next page here. So this would be more in the fiscal year 25 proposal then. Sorry, well, that's my computer been slow. All right, and then so the signal box, I think in our last meeting, we had talked about, I think that there's at least 18 boxes in town, and what would it take to get the, enough wrapped to where in, say, even 3 to 6 years, when the original ones are dilapidated and need to be replaced, that Helena has enough of a smattering to, that there won't be a bunch of blank boxes around town. And so I think from our last meeting, we had kind of landed on trying to shoot for a higher number of doing something more like, I think eight boxes, which would equal about $10,000. And that's in line with about what Bozeman does every year, what Missoula does every year. And I think there's actually over 19 blank signal boxes. And so I just kind of kept this one pretty simple. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts on this? Or,
Does that mean you wanna be able to do dumpsters?
yeah, so dumpsters, I think, is this spring. Yeah, yeah. And then I think that's the plan, right? Yeah, because it's dumpsters, signal boxes, and then the third year is like a community collaboration. We can kind of plan that far ahead, and then it repeats the cycle. So that way it kind of focuses on one like smaller project for kind of like more local artists or local organizations.
Well, and something to think about, sometimes a new signal will be warranted and be installed, and then all of a sudden now you've got a new box. So,
Right. Which potentially, what I was thinking is like, if in the cases of, say, one gets hit and has to be replaced, that money could potentially maybe be like a maintenance cost, was maybe a thought there, because it would be more of a maintenance item at that point, because we already own the artwork from the artists. So that way, if we wanted just to replace it, we could. I think we had replaced one box with new art because the old one was just kind of these photos, and we wanted it to be more kind of local artist based, if I remember correctly. And I don't believe I had got it here because I think I was confused with thinking the Lindale was now our fiscal year 25 request. Does that now mean that we shoot for the band shell for fiscal year 25? Yeah, that's what I was totally that and I think my thought was that I got it flipped around, where I thought that was then pushed off a year to the next October. Which I still have all the pieces for that. I think we just need to land on what that number would be. I think it was about 20,000 8 years ago, or was
That might be
Sounds
another one, once we have all of our channels with the city commission, as Danae was saying, since that's a big project, that's probably gonna be multi-departmental, to bring that up in the presence of other departments.
Parks Department was
No,
involved.
so you don't have to do that.
That's what I was saying,
Yeah,
like, do
so
we
you
get
don't
that
have to
quick?
do that. Your job is to get the commission on board. The commission, if they go on board, then it goes to the city manager, and then the city manager makes that
But to
determination.
make our ask for our bigger number,
Right, so another thing that you don't necessarily have to do is provide a number. It's helpful for us, and it's kind of a good thing for them to at least have an idea. But the way that the process works is you guys give them the wild goal, right? So we want to redo the band shell, and this is why, and this is like our idea. It'd be great to be able to say, 10 years ago when they did it, it was this much money, and then they did it 10 years before that, and it was this much money. So we estimate that it might be about this much. So if they say, yes, we love that idea, city manager, do you have your direction? And then he says, I do. Then he passes that to us. The reason that this is done in October is because we then take that information and that project and we vet it. It may not be us, it may be parks, it may be all to us, transportation and parks. That's what the city manager decides. He decides who he's gonna give it to. We have to then vet that project. And what we're gonna be looking at is it affordable within the budget? Can we ask, do we feel it's a number we can ask for? What number is it? What is that number? That doesn't mean that we won't be coming back to you and saying, hey guys, can you help us? Some of you have are experts in this, or you may know other things. But we have to do the research. That's where we come in. We are the ones, it's our budget. We're putting that budget together, which incorporates the projects that the commission has passed on that you recommended. And that's where I keep talking about, it's like, it's a complete shift. It's a complete flip flop from what you're used to. So you're not actually making budget requests. That's not what you're doing. You are making requests for projects and ideas.
Alright, this, I know, it's just like, we spent
I was
so
just
much
learning how to do
already, it's like crazy numbers over the past few years, I
Yeah,
swear.
I mean, the numbers are very helpful, and like, we're probably gonna still need that too.
I gotcha.
But that's what they're asking from you. So you're doing the pretty,
Mhm.
and we're doing the ugly. But
With that, which I think from our last meetings, we have a lot of that band shell information, and I have a band shell slide, and I don't think it made it in here.
So I have a question about the band shell.
Mhm.
What about, instead of repainting the whole thing, what about just repairing it? No, I know some people don't like it, but
Yeah, I wanna see it go.
Rebuild it, maybe in a different shape.
And history shows that it's been
No,
done
not the-
about every
not the
10 years, so it's time. Yeah, and I actually had a short conversation with the Parks Department the other day about it.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, in fact, I've got her whole file on everything from that. Like all their files from that are sitting on my desk to go through.
Oh, yeah, I think you had sent over a lot of that, which was really
I
helpful.
sent over like what we had digitized,
Mhm.
but they have all kinds of other stuff in there that we don't have.
Great.
So,
Yeah, with that, I think that's something that we could really easily pitch to the commission
Yeah.
next month, and really make the case for. And that, I think it would be like the final crown jewel and kind of revitalizing that whole kind of heart of Helena, between Centennial and Memorial Park and.
Well, and they're doing the playground, like, right now, so I think that would support the case to just,
It's a good time.
up the jam.
yeah, and they're just, we just did something with the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah,
didn't
the
they?
Veterans
Yeah,
Memorial,
they're
that's all
saying,
kind of refurbished, cleaned us, right?
yeah. So it'd be like the last piece.
Absolutely.
well, and I think that's in a TIF district too, so,
And yeah, I believe we had talked about that. I think it's technically railroad, right?
yeah, I'm not sure, but
On the
yeah, I
edge.
think it's railroad.
Yeah, I think the current mural has like served it well, but it would just be really a cool opportunity to kind of have something that's just like a blast of energy. But yeah, and I think the fact that we don't have to come up with all of these hard numbers makes it a lot
I
easier.
know.
Yeah, that's
You're like, oh my God.
That's just that
cut
necessary.
in half.
Yeah, like Bridget said, you guys can bring the passion to the meeting and say, here's this grand idea we have that, I've gotten all this public input, or we've heard, somebody wants to see this, or that. Just bring that to them, and if they're, go forth and conquer, then we'll figure out what we think it's gonna cost. Have those conversations and bring it through the budget process. The city might say, we got general fund money we're willing to throw at it. We don't have to go out.
So do we need to even mention a number for the Lindale Tunnel? Or can we just say this is a project we're moving,
So Lindale is
Lindale's already-
Yeah,
that's already
in
budget's
process.
approved, and, okay.
but these future projects, for instance, and the one thing, when you talk about numbers, so inflationary costs over the last 3 years, and I'd have to look back and see what our actuals were for these last rounded traffic boxes, but more than likely, next year they're gonna cost more than they did this year. Or, you know what I mean? So you always have to build in a budget cost or the contingency to cover those.
like an
extra
estimated.
costs.
Yeah.
And then truly contract with, here's the concept, here's yours, here's how many boxes we're getting. And you go to whatever sign company inside to go with, do the wraps and say, what are you gonna charge me? Can we do an agreement? And we hold them to it so that we're not stuck with the bill that we're like, where
Yeah, because
did this come from?
Yeah, Gentry actually sent an invoice out to get it quite a bit higher than the staff had proposed, and I had to go back and look what I found, because we didn't have the agreement in place.
Mm.
But I just went back and find the original quote, we stuck to it.
They usually do.
Yeah.
So,
But that's the part we get to worry about. You guys just
totally.
come up with good ideas.
Okay, well, yeah, this makes this a lot easier. Yeah, I think this is fantastic. This is very exciting. And I think kind of this is something that I could very easily speak to next month. As long as we're kind of all in agreement that that's where we'd like to.
And
put
is
our
that,
energy.
so this traffic boxes, that's gonna be most of our budget.
So I think we don't even have to worry
We don't have to
about
worry.
budget.
We don't
We
have to
just,
worry about even the traffic boxes,
yeah. From we're just kind of, we're saying like, hey, we have
This is
these
what
many
we
more
want.
in town.
so we don't wanna include that number in this
We might
report.
not even have to. We could say an estimate it. We could still estimate it. But I think what's more important is pitching the idea to the commission, for them to be.
Right, it's no longer our choice what does and doesn't get done. We just propose the idea and then they make this decision.
Right, and then the city makes it
And
happen.
then we might help do research to support that,
Insights,
but
yeah.
it's not, that's not specifically our purpose.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, so I think as far as like our fiscal year 24 or 25, yeah, are we all great with kind of just focusing on signal boxes and the band shell and that being what we focus on? And then I guess according to our strategic plan, the next year for the smaller project would be whether, we have a vetted community collaboration at that point to propose, or dumpsters, back to dumpsters, or something else that might come up that someone might have an idea for.
Yeah.
And then we get to just go back to the strategic plan, and then we just have our template already laid out for us.
Maybe
So-
do a sculpture somewhere.
That would be so
I
nice.
haven't had any sculptures for a while.
Totally. I think now that it's like not as worried about the, before it was trying to fit everything into the, the budget, and it didn't feel like a lot of that was feasible, but now knowing that it's like, and still knowing that there's still a lot of feasibility to vet, but that we can kind of just focus on what we think is best for the public art community.
I think we should make Malfunction Junction into a miniature Times Square, all
Ooh,
digital bill
write that down.
for artists. Not advertising.
Not
Sorry. Ooh.
There's a little triangle down in the 6th ward where, down by the park, Little Beatty Park, and where the roads all come together in that 5-way stop sign. And there's a little triangle there, and they put in 4 trees there, but there's still big empty space in the middle of that triangle. And that would be nice for a sculpture of some sort.
Absolutely, especially like if you could, anytime we've got anything like that, you could just document it, take photos and just, write a little mini proposal, and then we can have that in our basket. But when it's time to,
Mhm.
do this again next October, we
That's
have
in
all
the-
of those ready to go.
It's in the TIF district.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, I think that's great.
I have a question, if you can back up to the outreach section.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. We got 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
If Amanda wants to take public comment on items that.
Okay.
I'm interested in what you want, but we gotta get this guys out.
Totally.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else
What's
on
next?
annual report stuff? Not hearing it. I could just quickly speak to the percent for art update. Jenny's kind of been helping spearhead that for me. We had just a quick meeting with the city manager and Bridget and Troy, just to kind of get that conversation going. To just see if it's, even a feasible option. And I believe now it's in the city's hands to reach out to the county and to see if that's something that they would be interested in collaborating with, or if we want to stick with our current model. But Jenny provided some resources to kind of look through for them. And so we'll just give you guys more updates whenever we hear them on that. So.
Amanda, if I could interject too, we did double check with the city manager. Because we weren't quite sure if he meant a meeting with like just staff and the county, or if he meant with you and Jenny again. And he does meet with you and Jenny again.
Okay.
I looked today at some available dates coming up,
Mhm.
but since Jenny's not here, I will, or actually, let me give them to you. And because I leave for vacation tomorrow. If you could check with Jenny and see if any of these dates work,
Mhm.
and then maybe, get a date, get one of these to Troy, so we can try to get it on the schedule before they fill up. So October 17th at 4. October 18th at 1. These are that's like the two busiest guys in Santa County, so it's very hard.
Half-hour blocks over the next. 2 weeks.
October 23rd at either 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. And then October 27th at either 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.
Okay, I'll reach out to Jenny.
Okay, thank you.
Totally. And so with that, I think we can have our community collaboration RFP draft plan discussion. And then I think everything else can probably, besides public comment, kind of wait till our next meeting. So we
And
kinda
this
keep
can
everyone-
wait too, if people need to go, it's just an outline of some quick questions. So, do we have that we can share on the screen? It was really much here.
I can see about.
No, okay, well, I can just read it out, so, it's just a draft, and I assume, like, we'll wanna go through it a few more times just to line everything out, but it was just like mental purge. So working plan to develop an application process for the $5,000 available matching funds for community projects. So the intro paragraph is just, please respond to the following questions and include the appropriate files to submit your request. The HPAC may or may not grant the full requested amount. You may request to present your request in person, or you may elect to present your request in person in addition to submitting your materials online. HPAC meetings are open to the public and recorded. Meetings are held monthly on the third Thursday of each month in the city county building. So then Wednesday, thank you. So, and then just like a transparent timeline and process for review. So mark the date for the request deadline, mark the date for review date. If approved, the request moves to the city council. That was the part that I was like, the process I'm fuzzy on. So if it's approved, the request moves to the council. Is that right? Okay, and then it goes to the city commission. And then if that's approved, the HPAC will remit recommended funds via check to the applicant or city, right? Not
City.
okay. All right. So then my list of questions was a cover letter. Please fully describe the project, including location, medium, and relevance to the Helena community. Number 2, what is the full anticipated cost of the project, like meaning all encompassing? What are the other funding opportunities that you are pursuing or have pursued? Sub question, how much of the full cost have you already found funding for? Please list all collaborating parties or organizations involved. What is your timeline? Have artists been selected yet? If it's an outdoor project, what actions are being planned to mitigate graffiti and provide upkeep and maintenance of the project once completed? Is it publicly accessible? If not yet developed, will the HPAC have the opportunity to view the final design before funds are remitted? And then please provide a letter of support or evidence of past projects or fundraising efforts that have been successful. So trying to get community support or a demonstration of reliability and execution to like just have some support of that. And if they don't have like a completed past project, knowing that a lot of people are entering their first fashion project or something like that, and that shouldn't be negated. But maybe there is other collaborations or other like, or if they're fundraisers and they, to see what else they've been involved in. Please attach any imagery, designs, and photos of the proposed location so that the committee can become as familiar as possible with the project. And then would you like to be included on the agenda for blank meeting to present your proposal to the committee in person? So those are my outlined projects or things, and with it, I don't remember, was it included on the email? So that people want to write their questions for the next meeting?
Yeah, I know I included it in the attachments for the agenda, but I'm not sure it ever, sometimes I feel like with the file's too big, it just kind of.
So part of what I'd like feedback on is like, are there more questions that we want to know that would be pertinent to the city and the commission that I missed here? And, or if we wanna simplify it and make it less, like right now, there are 11 like talking points that people need to address, which maybe it doesn't need to be that in depth, or you know, but like knowing like, well, what the city cares about, like I know that they wanted to have approval of a design if city funds are going to it. So if I'm including things that we don't care about, like can we get rid of them and still have a decent picture? If we don't want to create barriers that are unnecessary for people to jump over, like we don't want to do extra hoops that don't matter. But we also want to get the pertinent information from people that the city cares about and that we need to know. So, but that can be feedback for next month if we need. This is just a soft, gentle curve into policy.
Yeah, I've got it here too, so we can kind of share it with everyone right after this. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic start, and I think then what we would probably want next is just figuring, getting that timeline be hard coded.
Yes.
And then everything else can kind of just fall into place.
Yeah, because I think people just want to have a predictable timeline, like it doesn't really matter what it is, so long as we can stick to it and deliver it for folks so that they're not like, well, they said this money would come and now we can't pay the artist.
Right.
Or that like the project is completed and we're, you know, getting in on the late edge or something. So, does anybody have any immediate ideas?
I think it's a great list. I'll need some time to think about it.
Yeah, a visual.
Parse through it in my brain.
I should have printed off everything.
Well, no, and I apologize. I see now that, so you sent an email on September 13th that I saw the agenda items, and then on the 14th, you sent me annual report, and I was thinking that the annual report was the number.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I'm
so
so
I
sorry.
apologize. I do see them. They were in the first email. That's the sign. And the thing that we just.
This is not like an urgent thing
No,
at all.
This is
It
why
can be
our
a slow
secretary
grow
keeps
thing,
going.
like.
No, you are very.
I know, right? You're working so
I was
hard.
also off on these days, so
Oh.
playing catch up to me, but.
I think this is great. Yeah, I'll just make sure that everybody's got this, and that way we can all kind of have our any edits and kind of finalize it at our next
Well,
meeting.
Yeah, it'll be nice
Great.
to have some time to think about it.
Totally. And thank you so much for putting that together too, because I think that's just like so nice to be able to have like a procedure, kind of keep it, equitable. So it's very exciting. And I believe everything else on our meeting, unless could probably just wait till next month, aside from some public comment, if there is any.
Hi, I just have a little tiny concern about the signage for the Centennial mural. There's white text with a yellow background. I don't know if it'll just be easier to read in person, but it looked hard to read on digital version.
Totally. I can make that adjustment.
I mean, I don't know if it'll look different in person. That's just a minor concern.
Totally. I think you're right, and I think that's a good suggestion.
And I
And
also
then
have
also the playing with the different font, italic.
I also have an additional public comment. I think that it would be a nice idea to have a standardized way to do signs, but I think it's more Helena to have just chaos. And personalize the signs. Like I really like how the circle sign kind of matched the aesthetic of the mural that just went in. The women's memorial mural, geez Louise, it matches that kind of theme. I just think it would be fun to keep them, but I totally see the point of making it consistent. So maybe like making the contents of it consistent, but the design can be different.
I like that too.
And I think for this signage too, my thought was kind of like a railroad crossing sign, trying to kind of evoke that imagery. But it's hard, I couldn't do like the sideways stuff. But yeah, Kathy, did you have any other?
Yeah, I just had a question back on the report, and it was under the events section. And it talked to, can you get that back up, or so that I can see what it was that I was wondering about?
Which one was it?
Okay. It was, it was down at the
Oh,
bottom.
the public art map events, public art.
Right. But it was above this.
Oh, one above, two above.
Keep going.
There we go.
There, we're right there. Events, and it says, HPAC provides chalk donations and community outreach at downtown events throughout the year. And I'm just thinking on what Danae was talking about with the public outreach and the communications, and wondering if there needs to be some modification to that or some thought on how that fits with the new procedure.
Sure, we've got photos of that. We've been
I
at a lot
went
of
and
those
did the
events.
chalk event at the Kids Fall Fest, Kids Fall Fun
Yeah.
Fest, last weekend.
Yeah, if you could share those photos, I would love to include
I
that
did
instead
not
of.
take any.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
that's okay, you're too busy.
I actually had a pretty in-depth conversation with Danae about this when we went over, and this is actually part of the reason why we had a lot of back and forth about your template bylaws, because we were gonna present those tonight. But we were literally in a meeting, yesterday, late afternoon, so it was too late to get it into the agenda timeline, so we put it off till October, because we did have a lot of questions regarding what you guys do and how it fits into the box of a standardized template. As far as the promotion and advocacy on behalf of the city, which there's a section of bylaws that talks about that. And it does talk about, you basically have to, the commission has to know about it and they have to approve it. So it's like, well, every time we do a little event, do we have to go to the commission? That's not really realistic. So what I'm hoping that you can maybe kind of bolster into your report is you're kind of making a proposal, like this is more of a statement, but you're making a proposal to them about what you want to do for promoting art for the year. And it can be as simple as, saying, like, we would like to continue to do promotional activities such as these that we did last year, pop-ups and attending events to promote the art and those kind of things. It's basically letting them know what you're wanting to do and kind of getting that, yep, that sounds good type thing from them, which is basically your consensus to go ahead. And we talked about basically kind of being this blanket thing. I will have to start posting all of those activities onto the city calendar so that they are posted as a public event. So like the one that you just did, it would just be on the calendar as an
Right, and that one probably would not have worked because I forgot to reach out to them until the week of, and then quick email Jordan was like, hey, can I come with my chalk?
No,
And
I mean, that's still.
they were
fine.
like,
I
yeah,
just don't
that's
give a-
totally fine, and it was like, but yeah, it would not have passed this rubric. Can we also ask if it's okay for us to recruit to fill empty seats on our committee? That was what we originally kind of did with the chalk tent, away from Chocolate at Helena. A couple of years ago when it was a vacant body, Max and I went out and just started recruiting people.
Right.
I think
And it worked.
It did work.
That's how I got the gig.
Yeah,
I got
yeah, I
recruited
think
as a chalk event.
the mayor actually recruited
that's
you at that one. And it was an effective tool for that kind of thing, but we should probably ask if that's okay for us to use the chalk tent
Recruit for you.
in that way. Outside of that, I think we should
We're
come
gonna
up
have,
with new
we're gonna have
printed.
30 other boards asking us to recruit.
Yeah.
Just wanna be done.
I know.
Don't go to the chalk
But we
tent,
should
it's a
also
trap.
get new flyers. If that is okay for us to do that, we should also talk about wanting to print more material with new updated stuff. Because I did feel like I was sitting there in my little tent and I was just I have nothing to show you and I have nothing to talk about. I'm not recruiting, I'm not selling anything.
Oh my God, it's
I just have this bucket of chalk. And what I really should have done is just because I put them around at different places. But then I was like, I don't actually have to be here. I could have just put the chalk down and then packed it up and gone away. And I don't have any utility.
Totally.
So I just kind of sat there for 4 hours, which was fine. But I also felt like I was taking up space at an event that I wasn't really necessarily needing to take up that kind of square footage in. So then it's well, when we don't have anything to promote, or printed material or something, I could just drop-off truck and head out, and it's got our logo on the little bins, and that's plenty.
Totally. So we want it to
Or-
be productive for you too, and
Right.
you know, feel like
And
it's
relevant to the community,
worthwhile.
because
Uh-huh.
like, you know, our printed material is pretty out of date. and-
Totally, it's time for some fresh stuff.
Mhm. So,
Maybe we can speak to that as well. I think I can include that.
yeah, or if we don't have that, which is also totally fine,
Mhm.
like, if it's okay for me to just like drop top with our logo on it and come back in 2 hours, and pick it up,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things that we don't want the resolution of the bylaws to prevent is what your, you know, one of your biggest purpose, which is to promote art,
Mhm.
right? And that's why it's like, well, advocacy, promotion, like. there's
Yeah.
a
And if we
really
can
fine line
clarify, like, we're
between the
not
two.
asking for donations, we're not like.
Right, and it's basically like, you
selling.
have these events and you go out and you talk about. You can promote the committee for sure, especially if there's vacancies, you know, you can promote just what, you know, like with the art map and letting people know like what art is out there. And all of that kind of stuff, like they don't wanna stop doing anything like that, what they wanna stop is.
Being surprised.
Being surprised by things, or, you know, you could get, there's nobody currently like this, but she referred to a incident that happened with another board where a member literally created this little subgroup and printed flyers and went to the neighborhood and passed all these out and started these little home meetings to advocate for something that she wanted to put through their committee that then went to the commission. And so those things can easily build
Get
without having
political
some
with it.
parameters. You guys are being very public, you know, you don't have to get every little like flyer that gets made, that doesn't go to the commission. You gotta remember, the commission is way up here.
Mhm.
And then we're down here, we're down here, you guys are above the commission, like, so you guys make the recommendations to them. We're the ones down in the weeds, so if there's like a flyer that you're wanting to do, that would go through us. It doesn't have to go all the way up to the commission. So, and then as far as anything like recruitment wise for boards and stuff, a lot of times the commission will also help provide something like that. Or our PIO where we standardize, you know, it's like a city thing.
Yeah.
So. Okay, to go chop away.
Yeah, go chop away.
So can I follow up on my question? So this looks really nice, and I'm wondering if this is gonna go on the website. As part of the report, do you talk about the website and how that's being used to whatever?
I think what the website's mostly a resource for is that public art map, which I that's why I kind of listed the link there. And I mean, I guess I'm not sure if this would quite fit into like the resources tab, or I think it was just included as in like on with this month's agenda. So I'm not sure if we would just re-include it with those adjustments next month, and that could be kind of like our official.
I like it because it's got everything listed. It's like, oh, okay, just told me everything that I want to know about HVAC.
For the year. Yeah, that's a
You know, and
good
it
point.
has a lot of visuals and
Yeah, that's definitely something we can kind of look into and see if the resources tab would be a good kind of place for something like that. Of how we can, you know, share what we're doing.
Yeah.
And with that, is there anything else you'd like to make a public comment? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for such a productive meeting.
Yeah.
Getting better at this.
Nice job.
Two hours.
Yeah, good job.
Everybody. No, no,